And we are live. Hi, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back for the third time the incredible USA Today and internationally best-selling author, Kaira Rouda, here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new scandalous book, The Widow. Kaira, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
I know, Sarah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this book. It's my first one. So I've dressed for the cover part. It's my first one, and so did Sarah. I like it. I like it, you know, because it's The Widow, and it's about a congressman's wife. Her name is Jodi Asher, and she and her husband Martin have been on the Hill for 15 terms, 30 years, and she's been the fuel behind his success. Some people would call her ruthless, but she's also quite the socialite in DC. And, you know, for 30 years, they had a good thing going. And now when you meet them, Martin is really messing up and Jodi is not happy about it at all. That's the start. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Martin, Jodi ain't happy. And if Jodi ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Exactly. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Kaira, I'm so excited to welcome you back. And I'm so excited to talk all things The Widow. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching. So we are live to 7 different destinations today across Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, oh my gosh, we're so happy to have you. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors. You get to ask them anything. So ask Kaira about her days as a congressman's wife. How much of this is based on real life? We got a lot of dirt to dish. So get the questions going in the comments. Deborah, welcome to the conversation, saying hello from Toledo, Ohio. It's so nice to be with you. Deborah, we're so happy to have you. Welcome to the conversation. Megan, welcome. She says she's super excited to read this. Yay, Megan, you're in the right place. Deborah says this plot sounds so fabulous. Isn't it just such a tasty hook, Deborah? So, Kaira, you've spent some time on the Hill. I love just saying that. It sounds so in the know, in DC as a congressman's wife. Is that when you started plotting this book, or did you see something scandalous? Or give us the scoop, spill the tea.
Well, and Deborah, being from Toledo, you'll appreciate that Martin Asher is a congressman from Ohio. So that's where I lived in Columbus for a really long time. And so a lot of my books will be either set, I kind of flop around between Ohio and then Southern California, where we live now. And so this is my first book set in Washington, D.C. But of course, I harken back to Ohio again. So he's a congressman from Ohio. So anyway, how much is based off of experience? A lot, actually, because the whole setting is so, well, it's just a whirlwind setting. It's full of history. It's full of intrigue. It's full of everything you think it's full of. And when I had the chance to be there and really immerse myself, the story starts at dinner at the Library of Congress. And that was one of my favorite places to learn. When I was there, I was trained to be a docent there because it's such a magical building and it's filled with every book that anybody's ever written. And it's such a special place. So anyway, so all the settings are very much based on real life. And I mean, the cheating congressman part is not based on real life, even though the New York Post tried to make it sound like that, which was hilarious. So anyway, so yes, the settings and maybe some of the people I met, but yeah.
Well, okay, so let's dive into this. First of all, Library of Congress. I didn't even know. That's so cool. So Megan, thank you for the great question. And Kaira, let's dive a little deeper. So you now as an author to have been at the Library of Congress, I mean, I'm just getting chills, and to train as a docent. So what was that like? I've never met anyone who had that opportunity.
Yeah, and really anybody can become a member of the Library of Congress when you go to DC and you take the tours and you see all the fabulous monuments. You can't miss the chance to go to the Library of Congress. 2 things I got to do. One, they have I think it's called, I can't remember, like an auxiliary books whole section where they try to keep like 3 copies of every book printed. And so then if they have extra ones, they send it all to this room, and you as a congressperson or the congressperson's representative can come and shop for books for charities in your district. So I got to go. I know, it was so cool. So I get a shopping cart and go, and we'd pick different charities in the district to bring books to, like once a quarter, every couple of months. That was really fun. trained to be a docent was amazing. So first you have to join the Library of Congress, and you do that. Anybody can do that. And then you can use the reading room, and it's the most beautiful room you've ever seen. Just books everywhere. And then behind the stacks are like rooms that go in forever. It's just a magical place. And so you've got like history and art combined. Like the building itself is just a monument to literature and arts. And then inside of it is every book. And then it's just a magical place. It is.
Oh my gosh, it sounds so magical. I've never been, and now I feel like I must go because oh wow.
You absolutely must. It's gorgeous. And at night it's lit up. And that's why I set the first scene of the book there, because they'll do these magical dinners. And this dialogue dinner that they do now is sponsored by a man who's trying to bring the parties, both sides together. And so he'll have like an amazing speaker, usually an author. And then if it's like historical, they'll have place settings that match like the theme of the book. It's just a magical place. So anyway.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Okay. So many questions are pouring in, and we're going to get to every single one of them. Lisa, welcome to the conversation. She's watching and cooking dinner. I hope it's something tasty. Lisa, let us know. Deborah would like to know, were you there recently? Were you there during the January 6th, there on January 6th, Kaira?
No, we were not there. His term, I think, ended. He was there for one term, and it ended just before that happened. So, but our apartment was very close to. No, actually, he wasn't there that day, but our apartment is very close to that. So we were within the parameters of the fencing that were put up afterwards. Scary time.
So scary. Yikes. Wow. I didn't know that he was still
So he was still there. I had stayed home as soon as COVID hit. I was kind of on the lockdown thing, but he flew back and forth during COVID, because he could have, I guess they had like proxy voting, but he's like, no, this is my duty. So he would be on airplanes that were just empty. Nobody else going, and then going to our apartment, which is like, with nobody there. And then at the end with all the guards and the security parameters. Yeah, it got a little dark.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is fascinating backstory. Deborah, thank you for the great question. Lecha, welcome to the conversation, joining us from Texas. Great to have you, Lecha, as always. George, also joining us from Texas. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you, George. Great to have you as always. Deborah says, this whole book just sounds so fabulous, right? Deborah, I'm completely obsessed. Barbara, welcome to the conversation, said, what an interesting thing to do, training to be a docent for the Library of Congress. I know, I'm fascinated. I didn't know that was such a thing, and I've certainly never known anyone who did that. This just keeps getting cooler. Lecha has a great question. Kaira, who was your hardest character to write about and why?
Well, usually for me, characters come pretty easily, and I'm what's called a pantser. So I will start a story with a character and a title, and then kind of write by the seat of my pants. So the easiest characters were Jody and Martin Asher, because Jody popped into my mind right away, and I knew, her husband was going to be a problem. So much like they do. I will say that this story has also their daughter. So I like compressed timeline, and this is no different. So it happens in about 3 days, the first part of the story. And Jody Martin's only child, Charlotte, is getting married as the story opens, and her wedding is this weekend. And Jody's passionate about it being the social event of the season. The only problem is Charlotte is marrying someone whose parents are on the other party. So I wanted to make sure I had both parties in here, and so that makes for some awkward times as well. But I had fun. I really have fun writing everybody that pops into my head. So nobody was that difficult, actually.
Ooh, I love that. Now, Kaira, this is not your first book. What have you learned along the way about writing characters? Has it gotten easier? Was it always easy for you? Let's dive into that.
Yeah, the character part is really, I love a first draft because I'm just a pantser, right? So I love everybody's happy. They all did what they wanted to do. Now, that said, then the editorial side kicks in, and my characters have to listen to all the other feedback. And that's when maybe it'll get a little harder, because somebody will want a character to be a little different than what I'd imagined them to be. And so sometimes my characters and I could be stubborn about that, but I'm getting better with the whole editorial process and appreciating the fact that they're trying to make everything better, and they always do. So.
I love that. Leisha saying, thank you so much for answering her questions. Leisha, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Julie, welcome to the conversation. Always a pleasure to see your name pop up. She'd like to know, Kaira, do you still hang out with those political people that you met? Great question.
I don't know. That is a great question. I made so many great friends in our brief but amazingly whirlwind time there. We had a great class. I mean, it was funny. It's almost like when you go to college freshman year and you're and all of a sudden in these dorms with people from all over the country who you've never met before, and you're in this orientation program literally like freshman year, and you become really bonded to these people because you're all going through this like kind of wacky, wonderful, intense, historic, important experience together. So we made such lifelong friends. And actually the first apartment we rented, I think there were like 8 members of the freshman class, 3 on our floor. So it was like being in a dorm. Hey, are you guys going? Yeah. So anyway, I am
like, okay, see you at dinner. See you at
your Congress thing, or are you going to this? Or, and you know, and more on the serious side, like how do you learn to be a political spouse? Because many of us came to that same thing for the first time together. So it was the first time my husband had run for office. So it was the first time for me to be a political spouse. So there's a lot of learning that comes with all of that.
A lot of tricky learning, I imagine, as we see many scandals keep popping up with people in the spotlight. Julie's sending us love. Julie, sending it right back to you. Thanks for being here. I'm intrigued by this idea of being a political spouse, a role that, you have to sign on for, but maybe didn't envision for yourself. So fascinating stuff here. Yeah. Deborah wants to know, did you ever get to eat at the White House?
No, I didn't. I was so sad about that. I missed, I can't remember what it was, but there's all the Congress members are invited to the White House ball. And I'd been to the White House for the holiday decorations, because as a spouse, you can lead a tour of people through the White House, which I also did, which is really funny because I'm like, okay, I think we go this way. But anyway, so that was really fun. But I didn't get to go to the ball the first year because I had something back here at home for a kid. I can't remember what. But then the next year it wasn't on because of the pandemic. So darn it. But I did get to go, and Karen Pence had an event at the executive offices, her executive offices, where, she had like, it's a beautiful building, and she had like 8 rooms, and went there, and we were helping fill bags for military spouses to send overseas for the military spouses. And so that was so magical too, like just seeing where the vice president's offices are. And like, I don't know, there's just so many beautiful buildings and so much history that you just, I even used to take all of this for granted. We can't take it for granted. And really like trying to get along together bipartisanly. She couldn't have been more kind. I was by myself. We got there early. It wasn't my fault, but the person I went with, I'm not going to name her. So anyway, she's a very punctual person. So we get there really early. And the vice president's wife, second lady's staff isn't even ready for us yet. They're still putting cushions out. And so they're like, go in that room and have some coffee. So I'm like, all right. So I go in, it's like all the napkins with the seal of the vice president. It's so cool. And, you go in and like the china, and so I'm filling up my cup. I look over and it's just me and the second lady. I'm like, oh my goodness. Hello. I didn't know whether you're supposed to like curtsy. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Hi, you look so much better than your Twitter picture. And she did. I didn't even recognize her at first. She looked great. Anyway, so that's what I say. But anyway, she was so nice and we had a great chat. Anyway, okay, enough of that.
Wait, so did you curtsy?
No, I didn't curtsy, but I didn't know. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's you.
Oh my goodness, it's you. You're a real person.
I just didn't really expect her to appear like right there just with me and my coffee. But anyway, yes. So that was me being goofy. But
oh my gosh. Well, thanks for all the love on Facebook, you guys. I'm loving these stories too. This is so cool. Kaira, I want to get over to some of your praise, and then I'm going to get to every single one of your questions because I see them coming in, and this conversation is so juicy, y'all. We're going to get into it. So first of all, I want to kick off because I loved this review from the Library Journal, which calls your book, A Deliciously Diabolical Take on Marriage, Politics, and the Lies That Bind. I'm going to pop it right up here so we can all read together. So first of all, anything that says deliciously diabolical, DiVello is in for, okay? In for that. So first of all, congratulations on that. So, Kaira, so this is your first time writing about politics, but not your first time writing about marriage and lies.
Right.
You know, let's talk about that. Is that a rich field to mine? Is that
it must be? Yeah, I look behind me. I'm like, okay, all these stories. The perfect marriage is the perfect illusion, as we say in Kaira Rouda books. I think, yeah, it is a really rich area because, you know, beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives is where the stories I like to tell lie. And I guess I just kind of turned the lens this time towards the Washington, D.C. kind of social circles and the power there. But it's not necessarily a political story, so you don't have to be a big fan of politics or be sick of it to read it. I think it's more about a story of a couple, and they just happen to be set in D.C. Uh-oh.
Oops, I muted myself. I'm
like, oh no, did I do something? Okay.
I love when you said beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives is where I like to mine. Yes. Tasty. Okay, perfect. All right, let's get back to the questions. Deborah would like to know, do you have a favorite building besides the Library of Congress? Great question.
Yeah, I mean, the Capitol's magnificent, and talk about history. Just I got to go on a lot of tours there. When my husband would lead tours, I tried to go too. There's, you know, Statuary Hall, where every state gets to have a statue of two of its most important citizens, and they just surround you in this magnificent room, which used to be where Congress met. And so they have plaques on the floor of where everybody's desk was, because the desk. Fun fact, back in the day, you got to take your desk home with you back to where we don't have like all the
your wagon, your horse-drawn wagon.
Because the whole notion of Congress was meant to be like gentlemen, of course, back in the day, service. So you would stop farming for a couple of years, go do Congress, and then go back to your town. So you might have even brought your own desk with you. Anyway, but on the floor in the Statuary Hall are placards that indicate where anybody who served in Congress then went on to be president, where their desk was. So it's so cool to just walk around and see all that. It's you know, I mean, there's so much more, but yeah.
Wow. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Sharon saying she has already read The Widow and she loved it. Sharon, such a pleasure to see your name pop up. Tell us what you loved about it. Sharon is a prolific reader. Sharon, let us know what you loved about it. I'd be so curious. I loved it too, but I want to know what you loved. Megan wants to know, did your husband give you any advice about writing Martin's character, the congressman's character? Also, has he read the book? Megan, getting into the tea. Let's hear it, Kaira.
Yes, he has read the book. And no, he doesn't really give input on characters. Although I would say that, interestingly, when I had written the book and sent it to my agents, and then they sent it on to my publisher, and they, you know, made an offer and bought it. And then I said to Harley, you know, I'm writing a book set in DC. His team, because he was running for re-election at the time, they're like, what's it about? I'm like, oh, a cheating congressman. They're like, no. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of already sold. So they all had to read it then. And yeah, they were fine with it after the fact. They decided that if that's what an attack ad would be based on, then we would be sitting pretty good. So yeah. So anyway, eventually, but it gave him a little pause, I think, at first.
Wait, and who had to read it and approve it? His communications
team, like this political team. It was funny. They're like, can we see this? Like, yeah, it was funny. They were all like,
were you nervous when they were reading it? Or
I guess so, yeah, probably because I'd already pretty much sold it and it was, you know, slated to run and everything. But you know, it's fiction, folks, right? So I was thinking maybe they were taking it a little too close, but I wanted their input too. I don't want to harm Harley in any way with my stories of people behaving badly. But yeah, they ended up being fine with it.
And he also read it. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
he loved it. He didn't see anything wrong with it. He's like, there's nothing here, nothing's true. But I mean, it was funny because the people are like, is it based on a real story? And I'm like, yeah, about our experience there, but not about the cheating congressman part. But anyway.
So he didn't say like, oh, in the secret, congressional, closed door meetings, this would actually, he didn't say like that he had knowledge that only he would have, like, oh, you got this a little bit wrong or anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what I was most concerned about actually was making sure that I portrayed what the world's really like for political spouses and families. And that's why I dedicated the book to them, because I realized, and I think it's hard maybe for us to see them because they are like the silent support system, right? So the husbands and wives behind the political figure really, I mean, without their support, the political people couldn't do what they do. But they're supposed to be maybe seen, but definitely not heard. So that's kind of where I wanted to make sure I did justice, even though it's a fictional setting, just try to make people aware of really the power behind the politicians is with the spouses in DC socially. But yeah, and maybe have a little sympathy for them too.
I think about that all the time, especially having just watched the midterms and seeing the spouses up on the stage or out on the campaign trail. And I think to myself, what must that be like?
It's really hard, and especially in purple districts where there's, like so many personal attack ads, and the politician person, Harley be like, oh, whatever, that's ridiculous. But you as a family member or as a child or as a spouse is like, wait, you're talking about my dad. You're talking about, like, you want to go rumble with somebody, but you can't. You just can't, because they're telling lies, but that's the nature of our industry right now in politics. So yeah, it's
right. That makes so much sense. And I wanted to ask you about that dedication. So thank you for preempting the question. I love that. Julie wants to know, were there any true incidents in the book?
Well, like I said, I think the settings, like where Charlotte gets married at DAR Constitutional Hall, like a famous building that looks like a wedding cake, I thought, so I'd put her wedding there. And so setting wise, yes. But not really incidents, no. Because it's pretty much, yeah. I mean, I can't say anything without giving it away, but hopefully people
no
don't.
Spoilers here. We don't want spoilers here, Pete.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. George says the son of his parents' friends was a cook at the White House in the 70s.
How cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Did he ever serve up, did he or she, oh no, the son, did he ever serve up any juicy gossip, George? We need to know. We need to know.
Yeah. See, like, speaking of that, okay, so I'm holding, this is the Congressional Club Cookbook, and the Congressional Club is as a bipartisan spouses club, the first one that was formed to help support spouses. And I talk about it a lot in The Widow because I found a lot of solace there. And so does Jody Asher. And she's kind of a senior spouse now, so she has a lot of tips she's giving you while you read the book. But speaking of cooking and recipes, this is like filled with recipes from Congress members and spouses, and then also history. Like, it's just so fascinating. So I can't imagine like a White House cookbook. I'm sure there is one with, like, recipes from the way back in the day. So anyway,
I love that. Yeah, I love that. We have a mystery user joining us, and they would like to know, do the tips for congressional spouses, like in the book, really exist? Yeah, what's the tea on that, Kaira?
Yeah, I would say it may not how Jody writes them, but there definitely are kind of a support system in place. The Congressional Club has an orientation session for spouses where they kind of sit you down and say, okay, here's like some things that you need to be aware of, especially as a first-time political spouse, especially at the U.S. Level. And there is like a little booklet of more like dates and things that are important that you should try to keep your calendar. And then some tips, seriously, like scheduling is the crazy one, because if you live in California and your husband's in Washington, D.C. most of the time, I mean, there's a lot of scheduling issues. And then you also have a DC office and you have a district office. There's just a lot. So trying to make sure that your anniversary and people's birthdays are on, So all those tips and really like panels that they had of spouses like Jody who'd been there for years really helped.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Good to know that that is a true thing. Leisha wants to know, did you ever feel scared for some reason or another there? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I wrote about this for Newsweek, but the one thing that's the fact of political life now is the death threats. So when we served in Congress, we did not have a security detail, even though I thought that we should. Our district, like I said before, I guess is a purple district and in real life and very contentious every cycle, and or at least it has been so far. And so the death threats come hot and heavy all the time. And I mean, against our kids, our dog, like everything.
Oh my God, not the dog.
Yeah. So it's just, it's a, you know, it's pretty, we were walking in a parade once right after he got elected and we didn't have any security or anything, but people were running up to us and throwing things at us and like turning. And I mean, it's just, you know, it's scary when people, you know, I come from a belief that we're all Americans. And then after the election's over, we should, you know, treat each other with kindness and fairness and dignity. And that doesn't always happen these days. So that's scary.
Yikes. Yeah, Alicia's saying this is really scary. Absolutely. Alan saying you clearly have an appreciation for congressional history and I'm sure drew inspiration and insight from your real life experience. Did you draw any inspiration from fictional works set against a political backdrop? Great question.
Yeah, you know, I think mostly my inspiration would have been from like watching West Wing or House of Cards and that kind of thing. I know I've read DC-based stories and novels. I can't think of anything like right off the top of my head, but whenever anybody asks me, I always think House of Cards, Scandal, West Wing, those kind of stories about what's happening for the political side and then also behind the scenes and the personal side of fictional characters.
Kaira, thank you for the great answer. Alan saying that he was going to ask about those two specifically. Fascinating. Thank you for the great questions, Alan and everybody, and thank you for the great answers, Kaira. Deborah wants to know, did you stay in DC when your husband was in Congress? Would your children be in school? So your kids are out of school now there.
Right. Yeah. I was so lucky because my kids were all up and out. So that really helped because for a spouse who has young kids, holy moly, that's a lot too to deal with because you do have to pretty much decide where you're going to, you know, are you going to stay in if it's a working spouse and she has her own career or he has her own career and, you know, they have to make a tough decision. I fortunately, you know, I'm a writer, so I can do this anywhere. And so that's why I got to spend so much time there. So I spent about half of each month in DC with him. And that gave us more time to be together, obviously. And when he was at work, I could stomp around and learn the history and go to, I mean, you could go to a museum every day there, you guys, and never see everything that's there. It's just, it's such a wonderful place.
Yeah. And the museums are free, which is even cooler because museums can get expensive.
Right. And once you go to all the Smithsonian's, could you ever? You can never. Like there's just, you know, you could go to a floor of one of the Smithsonian. Oh, it's just amazing. It's a magical place.
Yay. Well, I want to remind y'all that the book is not even out yet. It is out December 1st. Kaira's coming on today to give us a very special pre-launch sneak peek into the world of The Widow. So here is the link, no matter where you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube. Here's the link. Click and pre-order from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will send this out to you December 1st. The perfect holiday gift for yourself or others who love the secrets that lie beneath seemingly perfect lies. So grab that link, click and pre-order. You're going to love The Widow as much as I did. Oh, Alicia wants to know, do you have a favorite memory from when you were there?
Gosh, you know, I mean, there really is so much. I probably, well, okay, this is funny. You know, who knew this? I sure didn't. So, you know, you win your election, or if you're one of the California districts, as we're watching right now, you might not know for 11 days or 31 days or whatever. So anyway, it finally is over. And actually, we went to orientation without it being called by the AP. So I would just introduce myself as maybe be the spouse of the, you know. So I feel for everybody that are in these type races. It's not easy. But so one of my favorite memories or a funny memory was because our opponent didn't concede. He held on till the bitter end. We missed out on going through the lottery, which is when they give all the new Congress people their new offices. So all the people that have been there for a while, like, get to move up to big, beautiful offices or work their way out of the freshman offices that they had. But if the person doesn't concede and you miss the lottery, you take their office. So we ended up in this office that was a 30-year incumbent's office. So I guess that was, and so when we went there to meet him, and you know, and he said, "You got my office now," and Harley's like, "No, we don't. We go through the lottery." He's like, "Nope, this is yours." And he had this huge, magnificent office in Raymond, which is, you know, one of the House office buildings, with a perfect view of the Capitol Dome. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, Harley!" But he had been there 30 years, so he had a lot of stuff. Every wall was covered with stuff. The floors, you know, everything was just covered with 30 years of a service, you know. And then when he moved out and it turned over to us, it's just this empty big space everywhere. And I'm like, so guys, how do we decorate this? And they all looked at me. And I'm like, oh no, that's a plot twist. I didn't know that we actually, so you had to go meet with the architect of the Congress and pick your colors for your curtains and the carpet color, and then you just go about decorating. So that was interesting.
Oh my God, I had no idea that's how it worked. I was braced for you to say, and then they ran out of offices. So he had like a desk in the basement with a stapler, you know, like office.
No. Like, which would have been easier to decorate, quite frankly, because all of a sudden we had this like grand office space and we're around all these senior members of Congress and we have nothing. Like, we had an American flag. We had, you know, I mean, so that was funny.
Oh my God, Leisha, thank you for the great question, which gave us this juicy, fabulous answer that I had no idea. This is such a fascinating sneak peek into the world of political spouses. I absolutely love this. George Beach is saying, is this really fiction, Kara? LOL.
Of course it is, George. Of course it is. No, it really is. It's just that these experiences were so, I mean, I guess magnified because I was really only there a year and a half because of the COVID thing. So all of a sudden everything stopped in March. So then I headed home, but it's just so almost every minute was so packed with purpose and different and, you know, just kind of awe-inspiring too. Like, there's just so much.
I love hearing that because I feel like so much of what we hear about politics right now is so negative. So knowing that almost, as you said, almost every moment was packed with purpose, that really actually gives me hope. Like, I love hearing that. That just fills my heart. Thank you. Thank you for that. Megan is quoting the line that you wanted to make sure that you accurately portrayed the lives of political spouses. Megan saying she loves that angle. I love that angle too, giving light to the person who usually is in the wings and doesn't get the light. And you know how lovely that is. Barbara, welcome to the conversation, saying back in the day, there was Martha Mitchell who did speak up. Loving that.
Yep. She did.
She did. George says he has no gossip from the White House cook connection that he had. Deborah says she loves that idea of that cookbook. Very, very cool. I know. I love that too. I had no idea. I should make sure I didn't miss anybody's comments. George saying death threats, insults, etc. These are
every first lady submitted a recipe too. It's so cool, you guys. Anyway, I might be doing a giveaway of one of these, so stay tuned. But anyway.
Oh my gosh. Okay, stay tuned for the giveaway. Everybody follow Kara. Follow Kara. I'll post her links right here. George is saying about the death threats, the insults. These are so crazy. Someone threw beer cans at Ted Cruz during the parade here for the Astros championship. Yeah.
I mean, this one guy came running up and took his shirt off. And I mean, we're just walking in a parade and started throwing those firecracker things at us. I'm like, holy camole, you know, and people flipping you off from the side, turning their, I'm like, really? It's 4th of July. People stop it. It's just,
How bizarre.
Yeah.
Julie saying, thank you. This was such a great conversation about a great book. Leisha saying, congratulations on your pre-launch. She loves the sound of it. And the cover is stunning.
I love it.
All your covers are. Kaira, did you get to choose the cover? Everyone always wants to know.
I know I didn't, of course, but when they presented it, I'm like, wow, that's really great. And Jody, who in the book is kind of 50, she loves that she looks like she's like 20.
She's a
my character is like, I love that for me. I'm going with it. Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't, but Jody's pleased. And when Jody's pleased, as you'll find out when you read The Widow, everyone's pleased.
When Jody's pleased, everybody's pleased.
Yes.
If Jody ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Nobody's happy, right?
Exactly. I love that. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody's comments. I'm scrolling through. Thank you guys for joining us here on Mystery Monday. Deborah saying this whole book sounds so fabulous. How awesome. Deborah, I totally agree. I loved this review from Lacey Schwartz, who said, in The Widow, Kaira Rouda perfectly captures the experience of being a congressional spouse and all the complicated intricacies of that lifestyle, and adds her signature flair to make it a riveting story that only she could tell. It's impossible to put down. Absolutely love that. I also, there's so many. Alan saying he can't wait to read it. Absolutely. It's so juicy. You're going to love it. Everyone's saying thank you so much. Y'all, we are actually slightly over time, but time flies when you're having fun. And there's been so many fabulous questions. And I always want to give you, this is your chance to talk to your favorite author, meet your next favorite author. So I never want to cut the conversation short. I just want to remind you, the book is not even out yet, but Kaira is coming on early, 2 weeks early, to give us the inside scoop. So once again, pre-order this juicy book. And it drops December 1st, the perfect holiday gift for yourself or others. Here's that link one more time. No matter where you are, grab it and read it. Support our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. All right, y'all, that is a wrap on this Mystery Monday. Kaira, thank you so much for coming back. Lucky number 3.
Thank you for having me.
And y'all, thank you for spending your Mystery Monday with us. I will be back next week with Anthony Horowitz and a surprise mystery guest. So see you then. Have a great week.